Welcome to the Cronin Memorial Rink in Revere, Massachusetts. I'm Patrick Keefe, fellow Knight of Roger Naples, or Roger Napolitano, and fellow and City Councilor. I wanted to welcome everyone to the Cronin Memorial, Cronin Rink, and welcome many members of our community, and just real briefly introduce some of them. We're happy to be joined by Roger's three nieces today and some of his family members. We welcome them. We also wanted to welcome Bruins legend, John Busick. Welcome and thank you for coming out to Revere. And we also have in attendance today, we have Chief of Police James Guido. We have Mayor Brian Arrigo, who will be speaking today. We have our Grand Knight, John Varanja, who will be saying a few brief words about Roger and the dedication of this plaque for Roger. And we also have a few members of our community in the school committee, the regional school committee. We have Ron Janino. We have the Revere School Committee, Michael Ferrante and Fred Sinella. And we also have fellow city councilors, Councilor Guanasso, Councilor Powers, Councilor Jerry Visconti, who's coaching hockey here tonight. New Councilor Jerry Visconti. We also have from the Speaker DeLeo was unable to attend, but Joan, his lovely assistant, was able to come tonight. And we also have representing Representative Vincent's office tonight. We have Richard Serino, Representative Vince's office tonight, but also he is the newly elected city official as well, city council. So congratulations. And I just wanted to give a little brief history on how this went and how we were able to get this done for the Roger Naples and his family in the memory of Roger Naples. But and then I have Mayor Arrigo and John Varanja coming up to say some words about Roger. But as we all know, Roger passed just about 2 years ago, and he was 97 years old. Before his passing, we were the Knights of Columbus, John Chesna, Jim Williams, and John Varanja, and many member Knights were very much wanting to put a dedication in his memorial before he passed, because we recognize what so much he's done for the community. One of the reasons it did take so long was we decided that it would be only fitting to put something on behalf of Roger facing the rink, where he spent so many days, not so much just at this rink, but he was an avid hockey fan, as we all know, and we'll go into some of the history of him. We thought it would be fitting to have him at this rink. And today was supposed to be a high school hockey game, but unfortunately got canceled, so we wanted to have it just before a hockey event. But because it's a state building, as we all know, what the saying where it says government works very slowly, it does. So these had to go out to special bids a number of times, and they were finally able to come back and be approved. But through the help and guidance from Representative Vince's office and Speaker DeLeo's office, and of course the City of Revere, we were able to procure and secure this plaque and put it up. We had it put up over the summer, but again, we wanted to have this during a hockey event, so what better than a Revere hockey practice? And again, we just wanted to welcome you to our city, and again, thank the Naples family. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Mayor Brian Arrigo, who has a few words to say about Mr. Naples.
Thank you, Patrick. Good evening, everyone. For decades, Roger was one of the most recognized people in the city of Revere. But a lot of people didn't know his real name. And whether they knew him as Roger Naples, but his name was Roger Napolitano. And whether you called him by his given name or not, one thing was always for certain. He made a memorable impact on recreation in our city and for our youth. For over 40 years, he was the director of Recreation Department, and he dedicated his time and energy to the young people of our city. And while he never was able to be married, the children of Revere were his children. And in the 50s, we did a little bit of research, and I found out a little bit more information about Roger. In the 50s, he was the founder, the heart and soul, and a pretty good pitcher for the Revere Softball League. And he spent his time into the 70s and 80s making sure that a lot of fun was had at Hill Park. And for 25 years, he was the voice of the Revere High School Patriots at the rickety old press box at the old Harry Delarusso Stadium, where on any given Saturday you could have 2,000 to 3,000 fans, and Freddie's shaking his hand because he knows, he's shaking his head. 2,000 to 3,000 fans that would come out and see our high school team play. And Roger also committed himself to charity. Many of us know the Row, Row, Row to Revere that Roger started with Pico Myers, his good friend. And Roger also served our country in World War II. But for all of the great things that he did, I think the most famous thing that Roger did was be the founder and the heart and soul of the Gallery Gods. And so for those of you, and those, I don't think anyone here doesn't know who the Gallery Gods are, but for the people who are watching at home, they were the never say die hockey junkies who were up in the second tier, up in the cheap seats at the old Boston Garden, and they were very well known locally, and they gained an awful lot of traction. And in fact, Roger sipped champagne out of the Stanley Cup in 1939. And when Bobby Orr was an 18-year-old rookie who had no idea what to do, and when he was 18 years old, coming from Ontario, he went to Roger's house in Revere to get acclimated to Boston. So, as we know, the old Boston Garden left. It was replaced with a shiny new building, but the fact is that the Gallery Gods lived on, and Roger was the heart and soul of that group. And when Roger died at 97, October 13th, 2017, the Boston Bruins lost their most devoted fan, who for 78 years, he was a fan of the Bruins. But I think more importantly, the city of Revere lost an icon. And although he was pretty soft-spoken, he was a giant in our community and was somebody who devoted so much time and energy to the youth of our city. So it's obviously fitting for him to be memorialized here at the hockey rink in the city of Revere. And this is somewhere where his spirit will inspire young hockey players to give their all and to always stand up for what is right, because that is what gods do. And we know that Roger's looking down and probably smiling at the fact that he's going to be memorialized here. And tonight we remember and we thank Roger and his family. And this is such a fitting tribute. With that, I will invite John Varengia to now come up and say a few words. So thank you. Grand night, John Varengia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Beautiful words. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. President. Folks, if you're from Revere, you knew the name Roger Naples. Some of us knew him as family members. Some of us knew him from hockey. People like Councilor Zambuto knew him. He actually became a knight with Roger many years ago. I was fortunate that I got to know Roger relatively late in the game, but I still got to know him. Roger was a member of the Knights of Columbus for over 60 years, and for most of that time, he was with the Revere Knights of Columbus, but for a few years when our club was going through a flatline situation, Roger transferred. But thanks to the efforts of Jim Williams and John Chesner, they stayed in touch with Roger, and they kept haunting Roger. We have the club going again. You have to come back. You have to come back. Roger was a little stubborn, but finally, in April of 3 years ago, Roger Naples walked into our club. A little older, a little more frail, but still very, very strong at heart. Now that meeting to me was one of the greatest meetings we ever had. because at the end of the meeting, Roger asked to speak, and he struggled to get up, and this relatively frail and older man spoke with a very firm and soft voice. And he talked about how he loved being back in our club, and for those that were there, you remember the meeting. He talked about his love of the city and how much he enjoyed being part of everything, and he liked the progress that was going on. And when he finished, he had all of us in tears, happy tears. We were all, the way he touched all our hearts, and he made us feel great the way he felt that we touched him. From that point on, Roger, for the rest of his time that he was with us, came to every meeting. 2 months later, we had the election of officers, and Roger came, and again at the end of the meeting, just before I rang the gavel, Roger asked to speak. And he raised his hand and he said, I remember his words, and it was kind of funny, and for those that are in the club, you'll know what I meant. He's like, I'm so very happy that everybody got elected, with the exception of one person. And we know who he was talking about. And for us that are in the club, it was kind of funny to know that Roger was referring to someone else who was about the same age as him, and two 97-year-old men were going at it. So it was kind of a riot. 3 months later, in September, and it's kind of appropriate, Patrick Keefe is president again. He was president 3 years ago. Patrick was kind enough, he gave a presentation to our council for our 1-year anniversary of rechartering the council. And it really was at that meeting that the thought came, and it's like, we had Roger here, we should really be doing something for Roger Naples, who gave so much back to our community. And it's almost appropriate in a way. That turned out to be, unfortunately, Roger's last meeting with us. A couple of weeks later, we got word that Roger wasn't doing well, and it might have been John Chesner or someone called me, and I called Jimmy Williams, and I said, Jimmy, somebody got to get down and see Roger. He's not doing too well. And Jimmy went down there, and unfortunately, while Roger is not here with us in body, he is here with us in spirit. He told Roger that this was in the works, so Roger did know that this was coming. And as the mayor said, about a week later, I happened to go to one of the few Bruins games I was going to. It was a week after we lost Roger, and the Bruins made an announcement and said they had some very sad news to share, that a member of their family, and Roger certainly was a member of the Bruins family as much as he was our own too, a season ticket holder for about 78 years, had been with us, and then all of a sudden, some beautiful video came up on Roger showing some of the great works he did. May God rest his soul. He was a great man. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And again, we're all here because of Roger, and throughout his life, although many of us didn't know him for very long, especially some of the younger ones, but he can guide us in spirit. He can guide us in what he did on his time in this earth, and we can only wish to be as good as he was and do what he did and make the impact he did in Revere. So without further ado, if I can bring the family up and we can help remove this so we can unveil his plaque. And we want to thank Roger Naples and the Naples family. And forever, this may be the Cronin Memorial Rink, but we can all call this the Roger Naples Hallway. On three? James, come on.
Yeah, looking at it.
1, 2. That's great. That's him up in the second row.
They need it as a tissue.
That's good, right?